What's up YouTube, this is Boston X79 guys. Today coming to my latest deck profile video for October 2021. And today guys, we're going to be looking at my updated Psi-Frame deck. Now, Psi-Frames, I can tell you right now, I enjoy this particular deck. It's a deck basically built around hand traps. It responds to whatever your opponent is going to be doing, whether they're activating monster effects or summoning monsters or spells or and as such, and you special summoning monsters to the field, and then depending on the turn and what else you have in the field, you can actually then go into some very unique synchro monsters that can actually cause your opponent even more problems. This deck just got a couple of different bumps in the last couple of weeks. It got a bump from the most recent ban list, as well as a bump from the Megatins, so I thought it might be interesting to take a look at how the deck is going to function right now. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into this. Okay, as always, starting with the monsters, I'm going to start off with 2 copies of Psi-Frame Driver. All you need is 2. It's very easy to get Psi-Frame Driver out onto the field. Any of the Psi-Frame gears, summon it from the hand, deck, or graveyard, so really, it's just super easy to get out, so that's why you only need to run 2 of them. We're also running 2 copies of Psi-Frame Multi-Threader. Multi-Threader is basically the level 6 hand trap in this deck. Basically, you discard this card from your hand whenever one of your Psi-Frame cards would be destroyed by battle or card effect, and it protects those cards. It protects all face-up Psi-Frame cards from being destroyed by card effects. So, very useful. There's also a very cute interaction with this card if it's in the graveyard and you special summon a Psi-Frame gear monster by a card effect. You can get this card out of the graveyard and still go into your Synchro summons because it counts as a Psi-Frame gear driver while in hand or on the field. Next up, we're going to go into the Psi-Frame gears, and we are going to start off with 3 copies of Psi-Frame Gear Alpha. Alpha responds to your opponent's summons. It doesn't negate the summon, it just responds to it. When it hits the field, you get a search for another Psi-Frame card, which is actually very useful. And from there, you're bringing out Psi-Frame Gear Driver from hand, deck, or graveyard, which is very awesome. And it just allows you to go into your level 7 Synchro plays. Next up, we have 3 copies of Psi-Frame Gear Gamma. Gamma is basically the it card of the deck. This negates monster effects. You see the Gamma package in a lot of our decks. It works insanely well here. Same reasons. Activate this when you have no monsters on your field, and your opponent activates a monster effect. Special summon this card plus driver, and then you negate the monster effect and destroy that card. And you get to go into your level 8 Synchros. Next up, we have 3 copies of Psi-Frame Gear Delta. Delta, very awesome in this deck because it responds to your opponent's spell cards, and most of the time spell cards are extenders in this game. Again, you're negating and destroying the spell card that's activated, so definitely a worthwhile card. And then the final Psi-Frame gear we're running is we're only running 2 copies of Psi-Frame Gear Beta. There is a little trick that I have built into this deck that can actually prevent your opponent from attacking, so you don't really need that many copies of this card in the deck. Again, it'll stop the battle phase and destroy the attacking monster, so it does come in handy at times. Now, for other cards we have in the deck, we have 2 copies of Cyber's Gadget, as well as 2 copies of Clock Wyvern. These are pretty much your starter cards to help you get into Psi-Frame Gear. Lambda from the extra deck. Lambda allows you to be able to have other monsters on the field alongside, and so you can actually be able to summon your Psi-Frame Gear monsters regardless, which is just useful. And each of these cards are 1 card Lambdas. Basically, you're going to be linking a Cyber's Gadget to go into Link Disciple, and it'll summon a token. From there, you turn the token into Devotee. Tribute off Devotee using Disciple's effect, you get 2 other tokens as well as an extra drawer, and then from there you can actually turn one of the tokens into a Link Spider, and then link off the Link Spider and the Disciple to go into Lambda, and you can turn the remaining token into a Link Karibo, which just adds an extra level of protection. Clock Wyvern does the same thing, except you're reducing his attack points to get the token and still go into your plays. Last monster is one copy of Planet Pathfinder. Planet Pathfinder is actually very awesome because you can tribute this card and add a field spell from your deck to your hand, and getting into your field spell is very important. Right now I'm running out of run because I only have one copy. I'm working on getting a second copy for this deck. Typically, you tribute this card off, it goes to the graveyard. If your opponent tries to interfere with it by trying to ash you or hit you with Skullmeester or some other form of type of negation, you do, whether it be monster, effect, or spell, you have the ability to respond to your opponent utilizing your other Psi-Frame gears. So that's very important. Next up, spells. We have 3 copies of Psi-Frame Circuit plus 1 copy of Terraforming. So essentially, right now, you can see we have about 5 copies of Psi-Frame Gear Circuit. Psi-Frame Circuit basically while cards on the field. Anytime you special summon Psi-Frame monsters, you could immediately after this card effects resolves, you can Synchro summon, so that allows you to get into your level 8 or your level 7 Synchros, which is actually very huge. An effect that a lot of people forget that this card has is that at the start of the damage step, if a Psi-Frame monster you control battles an opponent's monster, you can discard 1 Psi-Frame monster from your hand. And then that card gains the attack equal to the discarded monster's attack until the end of the turn. It does come in handy at times. Unfortunately, with the boost that we got from Megatons, not really necessary anymore. Coming up, we have 2 copies of Emergency Turbo. This was the boost we got from the ban list. E-Telly coming back to 2. Since the Psi-Frame Gear monsters have to be special summoned by a card effect, whether it be their own, you could also special summon them by Emergency Teleport, and that can actually help you triple off multi-threader while it's in the graveyard, so you can get additional Synchros on the board. So it does have its uses in this deck. To search out your starter cards, we have 3 copies of Silent Mining. And most of the traps in this deck have additional effects while they're in the graveyard, so Foolish Burial Goods just is a natural fit for the deck overall. And then the boost we got from the Megatons this year are 3 copies of Piercing the Darkness. Piercing the Darkness is just an insane continuous spell. While this card is face up in the field, and if you normal summon or special summon a non-token normal monster, you get to draw a card, so that's going to be happening a lot, whether it be on your opponent's turn or your own turn, which is just huge. Additional draws always helps you, adds consistency to the deck. Furthermore, if you happen to have a level 5 or higher normal monster or ritual monster, Xyz monster, or Synchro monster, or fusion monster that was made using a normal monster, this card can actually power boost the attack by the attack points of the monster it's battling, which is just huge. This gives this card all your Synchros here an honest level of style effect that can just allow you to attack over things. And given the fact that you're building them with vanillas, it's just really easy to get off, and it's just a natural fit for this deck altogether. Moving forward, we do have 1 copy of Metaverse. When I do get a second copy of Planet Pathfinder, this is a card I'm going to cut for it. But right now, it is a trap card. It can get you your field spell out of your deck onto the field ASAP. We do have 2 copies of Psi-Frame Overload, the trap card everybody fears in this deck. Basically, what you can do is you can banish 1 Psi-Frame monster from your hand or face up on the field, and then target 1 card on your opponent's field and banish it face down. If this card is in the graveyard, except for the turn it's sent there, you can actually banish this card and get an additional search for a Psi-Frame card, which is just awesome. Okay, and for the last trap, we're going to be running 3 copies of Rise to full height. While it's on the field and we flip it face up, you can target 1 monster on the field, double its defense, but its defense becomes 0 at the end of the turn. Not the best effect. You'll be using this more for its in-graveyard effect. Basically, while this card is in the graveyard, you can banish this card from the graveyard, target 1 monster you control. Monsters your opponent controls cannot attack for the rest of the turn except for that attack monster. except for that monster. And given the fact that the majority of the Psi-Frame Lord monsters actually can leave the field, you get the idea that your opponent won't be able to attack once it leaves the field. So yeah, very sneaky play that actually works very well with this deck. Moving into your extra deck, we have one copy of Psi-Frame Lord Omega because it is limited. Once per turn, during either player's turn, it's a quick effect that can basically rip a card out of your opponent's hand while it banishes itself, which is cool. And that card remains banished until your next standby phase. Once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, you can actually target a banished card, doesn't matter where, but return it to the graveyard, which is very useful for recycling resources, or basically getting problematic cards that are out of the banish zone back into the graveyard. And then if this card's in your graveyard, you get to target one card in either player's graveyard and return that card to the deck, which is still very useful to recycle resources from your graveyard. Next up, we have 3 copies of Psi-Frame Lord Zeta. Zeta is actually very useful. Has a similar effect to Omega, but with Zeta, you're basically banishing it plus a special summon monster on your opponent's side of the field, and this playing keep away with your opponent's monsters in itself is just enough to break up their plays. And again, those monsters, both this and the monster, remains off the field until your next standby phase. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can actually target one other Psi-Frame card in your graveyard and return this card back to the extra deck, and you get the Psi-Frame card back into your hand, which is always very useful. Next up, and this is a mainstay in most Psi-Frame decks, you got 2 copies of Black Horse Dragon. Black Horse Dragon is just insane with this deck because, again, level 7 Synchro, you summon this card out and you basically can blow your opponent's field, especially while they're in mid-combo. And that always just puts them back, especially if you take out their resources while you're doing it. In case your opponent does manage to negate that effect, you do have the ability to actually play through now that we have Piercing the Darkness in the deck. So definitely 2 of in a deck. For some other level 8s, I am running 1 copy of Draco Berserker of the Tenny. Tenny, whenever your opponent activates a monster effect, it has a quick effect that can actually just banish the card that was just activated, which is just nasty in its own right. And if this card attacks an effect monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, it gains additional attack equal to the destroying monster's original attack, and can make a second attack in a row. And when you have Piercing the Darkness, you're going to be getting a ton of attack with that, so that's just very awesome with this to do. And of course, I do have 1 copy of Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler, I like it in this deck primarily because when it's Synchro Summon, you get to excavate the top 5 cards and add a Excavated Light Monster, which is one of the Psi-Frame cards, from your deck to your from those activated cards to your hand, and then the other cards go to your graveyard. So if you draw into the cards that need to be in the graveyard, whether it be Multi-Threader or Driver or the 2 trap cards, you're going to be able to load your graveyard and get yourself set up with the right cards in your hand. So definitely worthwhile card in this deck. For links, 2 copies of Psi-Frame Lord Lambda. Lambda, while this card is face up on the field, allows you to special summon your Psi-Frame gear monsters to the field while you control other monsters on the field. And that's very important given the fact that most of the time you have to have an empty main monster zone. This guy just bypasses that and allows you to play your Psi-Frame monsters regardless. So it's very important to try to get this guy out as soon as possible. The other thing about it is that you can activate this effect, or has an effect if you happen to have banished a Psi-Frame monster happen to be banished during the turn. You get to search your deck for another Psi-Frame card to add to your hand, so it gives the deck an extra layer of consistency while being able to play with other monsters on the field. And of course, to help us go into the combo, we have Disciple and Devotee. Very awesome. Like I said, with the combo, as I explained with the combo before, either Clock Wyvern or Cyrus Gadget. Use Clock Wyvern's effect to target on the field before you do anything else. And then you basically send Clock Wyvern to the graveyard for the Disciple, or Cyrus Gadget for the Disciple. And then you use the token either of those cards generate for Devotee. And you use Disciples Effect to Tribute Devotee to get an additional drawer. And you get 2 other tokens, which will allow you to go into your Link Spider. You take Link Spider with the Disciple and go into Lambda, and then the other token becomes a Link Karibo, and boom. You have your little safety net on board to protect your life points. Guys, that is it for my updated Psi-Frame deck for the October 2021 format. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this on my channel, make sure to subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss any uploads. Check out the description box below. Find the invite link to my Discord server. Join the conversation. We'll love to have you. Check out the links for my affiliates, tcgplayer.com as well as sidedeckversus.com. Great resources for any Yu-Gi-Oh player. Follow me on social media, and guys, until next time, peace.